Good morning, folks. This is David here from the Xylem Zone. Just checking in. Thought I'd talk today about a subject that I'm pretty passionate about, but probably not passionate about because I actually love it, but because I have really identified the impact it has on our lives and from a very, very young age, and and it really runs our lives in many ways today. And I'm talking about the concept of debt. In today's world, many people are so stuck in debt, they're in a real trap, and they really can't make enough money to even after they've paid their mortgages, paid their costs, they're struggling to cover the repayments on the debt. So they get stuck in a place where they don't have a lot of choice, and in many cases they don't even know how they got there. So I thought it might even be interesting just to kind of look at some of the early concepts of where debt even came from. So I'm not saying this is the earliest example, but it's probably one of the earliest examples in our Australian history anyway. But imagine some of those early convicts that came out to Australia on some of the ships. Some were freemen, some were convicts, and they basically came out with very, very little. And so what was debt? Well, they got to the shores, virtually owned nothing, probably the clothes on their back if they were a free man, and if they were a convict, they obviously had nothing, and they were in servitude and had to hand out a sentence as well. So let's just go to the free man side of things, and they might have been on the boat, they paid a fee to get out, but then they still arrived with nothing. So they might have went back to the captain or someone in the local authority, a money handler, and basically said, I will give you my labour, and in return, if you can give me some cash now. And that obviously that cash was designed to get them established. Now, realistically, debt is an IOU. It's an IOU saying, give me something now and I'll repay you in the future. And you're usually, in that early example, the return for the money was labour, and the thing that officiated it was your mark, and in our today's world it's your signature. So, you can kind of say, well, what other choice did they have? But in many cases, that was just the way of life, and it seems to have just kind of woven its way into the world today, and now has got us in a situation where many people don't have a lot of choice. So if we go back and look maybe at some of the earliest way it happens to us when we're young, we have this thing called saving, and saving, we've always been told is a really, really good thing. And the old concept was, well, you don't spend money you don't have, and if you save hard, then you're a good person because you worked hard. And that's another principle that we're suggested is, makes you a good person. I suggest it's a little more strategic than that, but we'll stick with that principle for today anyway. So someone saves some money, and let's say you're at school and you're a youngster and you get some pocket money, you might have a little job you do on the side, and you build that money up. And Commonwealth Bank, I think, was one of the classics. I know I had a Commonwealth Bank account, other banks do it as well, or they had an account called Dolomites. So they put your money into the bank account every single week or month, and you build up a savings bank balance, and obviously you get excited when you see it going up. But what you don't realise is it's a very subtle process to build a relationship with you as a customer, and they're getting in right from the beginning. And because you actually have a regular savings history or criteria, by the time you reach 16, for some banks you actually qualify for a credit card. Now, you may need the parents to sign off on that to get that card, but plenty of parents are happy to sign off and give you your card, so you've got your little bit of spending money. Some parents will manage that effectively and give you a very small limit, or you can only use your own money with a debit card, and other parents may not. They may give you a larger credit limit and not monitor it, and when you spend too much, bail you out. Obviously, that's going to be different in every scenario. And if you're 18, potentially you can get a credit card without an adult, and you've got money to spend. So let's imagine you've gone through the process of finishing high school, you've gone to university now, and you've got something called HECS, H-E-C. And that's our, education is no longer free, so we've got to pay for it. We're following the American system. And literally, that debt is accumulated, but because we can't feel that debt at that stage, we go, well, it's not a debt, we're getting education without having to pay for it, and it's in the future, so we don't think about it. So we're on the university degree, where we obviously believe that university is our best chance of getting a job, and that's very much what we're taught to believe today. When I grew up, the university was still free, but not many people went. And we wanted to go out there and get a job and get work and get some experience. And then in my case, I went and studied later when I really knew what I wanted to do. But obviously the model today is go straight into the education. And let's say you've jumped in the education and you're at uni and you've got to get a part-time job because you've moved out of home now, or maybe you're living in and out of home where you just want some of your own money. You might be working in hospitality, you might be working catering. There's lots of different part-time roles out there. But you get to a stage where you go, I need a car because it's not that practical to get to my job. So what do? You go and get a personal loan to get a car. So a personal loan, in that case, is still considered a bad debt because you're not buying that under a business or a company. You're still using it for personal use and a portion for getting to your job, but it's just standard use. So it's considered a bad debt. So you've got the personal loan. So you go through university. Let's say you just keep your credit card. You keep spending your credit card, and you may get to the stage where you're not repaying it, and because you've been, paying a regular amount off, they give you an increase in your credit limit. So then you decide you want to go on holidays, and you don't have the cash at the moment, but your friends are all going, so you go and put your money on your credit card, and you go on your holidays. Now all of a sudden you hit a place when you get back where your credit card is maxed out, and your money's not enough to actually pay it down every month, and you're struggling just to pay the minimum repayment. But life goes on, Let's say you go through that, you finish university, but lo and behold, there's not that many jobs. Or the jobs you thought you were going to get when you first applied for that degree are now in oversupply, or they're no longer even in demand. And the employers you're looking at now want a lot more experience. They want life experience. They want some work experience. So the salary you're expecting is no longer possible, or isn't possible when you first get out. So you've got to then supplement that. So maybe you stay in a part-time casual job and try and work, try and get some experience on the side and build up to that. For the people that get the full-time job, happy days. You're into the full-time role and off you go. So let's assume either way you're in the workforce and now you start making a little bit of money, and guess what? The HECS debt cuts in. And all of a sudden, that debt that you hadn't had to worry about till now starts coming out of your pay packet before you actually take anything else. You got tax, HECS, then obviously you pay your rent and your mortgage and your car and petrol and telephone and internet, and obviously you get what's left over. So we start to get into the position where we start to see that the model of debt rolling through. But life goes on, and we've got an income, and of course, most of us want to find a partner out there, and that can be an expensive business, can't it? Going out, socialising, clothes, all those types of things. Some people may take a personal loan for those things. But let's say you don't. You just kind of put a few clothes in the credit card, and but then you get to the stage you do find the right person, and you decide you want to get married, or you want to go on a honeymoon, whatever it is. But you won't go out and get a loan because you don't have the cash between you, because you've got the debt coming out of your salaries. There's no money left over, so you get a loan because you've both got the full-time jobs now, and that pays for your honeymoon and maybe your wedding costs. Now, all of a sudden, we're probably hitting the mid-20s, and the next step beyond that is, let's get a few years, have a bit of fun, hopefully, that's the time to really party, I suppose, and get out there. It's kind of all those 20s, it's what it's all about. But you kind of hit your late 20s, early 30s, and all of a sudden it's like, well, we better get serious. We want to get married, we're thinking about starting a family, and we want to get a house first. And the money in those few years, you've got discipline for a few years, you've started saving a deposit, and you've managed to have that deposit and get your own home. That's in most people's eyes is a great result. And you've got your own home, and that's everything should be perfect. That's the white picket fences in the house. But guess what happens? Now your mortgage is obviously your first port of call, and the security you thought you got in having your home, you start to realise, well, you've got no security, because at any stage you can't make that mortgage repayment. The bank can take your house. And in many cases, the bank treats your house as a higher level of risk, because ultimately it's reliant on you paying it. And if something happens to you, you can't pay that mortgage, where an investment property has a tenant in there, and if that one goes, there's other tenants to fill it up, so it's less of a risk for many banks' criteria. Also, you have to pay principal and interest repayment, which is a lot higher than an interest only. And if interest rates go up, all of a sudden that cost can be quite substantial. And now we think that maybe this house is a good debt, because it's something that we're living in, it's giving us some substance for our lives, but ultimately it's a bad debt because it doesn't get any tax deductions. If you do any work on the house or renovations, there's nothing effective about it. It's all straight money after tax dollars being spent, and nothing back in depreciation or other offsets. It's all got to come out of your own pocket. So the reality is, it's not putting money in your pocket, it's taking out. So now you've got another big bad debt. So everything we're taught to do is locking us down, from the start of savings to locking us in the credit to a personal loan to maybe another personal loan to maxing out credit cards to a HECS debt to now to a home. And maybe we're 25, 30 and we've got to a place where there's so much money going out, we're struggling just to keep up with ends meet. And of course the next step is, but we really want to start a family, and obviously only one person can deliver that child, and in most cases, and so one person stops work. And of course, now we've got a situation where, unfortunately, children's not considered a asset generating individual. It's an income generating asset. It consumes, doesn't it? So from the bank's point of view, a child is an expense. So you lose one salary, your income goes down, but your expenses all go up. Now, with one person working, all of a sudden, your whole focus is on your child. And I love kids, don't get me wrong, but they cost a lot of money. I think about $1 million. So if you've got a few of those, it starts to cut. And if you've only got one salary, well, you don't go out for dinner very much. You're not drinking many bottles of red wine. You're probably not taking many holidays. You're not upgrading the car. And if you're in the situation where you do have the money, well, you're probably working a hell of a lot of hours, and you might even be seeing your child because you leave early and you get home late and you just see them to say goodnight. So either way, pros and cons there. If you've got the money or not, life gets pretty tough all of a sudden. So you start to see that the web that's been woven with this model of debt is all of a sudden, something that we start to feel very trapped, and we kind of don't know how it's happened. And no one really teaches you about it. My parents had bad debt. They were always struggling and never seemed to get ahead, but they worked bloody hard. And, I was looking after my younger brothers from a younger age because Mum was a nurse and she was at night duty. Dad's health was already failing. And, but they worked hard, so I could see the model wouldn't work. So what did they do? Dad suppressed his emotions. Mum worked even harder. And eventually he became very depressed and unhealthy. And Mum got mega stressed. And, but she had to keep pushing through. And through that period, they lost a couple of children along the way, and they didn't have time to even stop and grieve because they just had to provide and put food on the table. And we weren't really aware of that at that stage. And but I grew up with this massive fear of debt because I could only think that debt was a bad thing. Now, it's only when I started down the investment path that I started to understand that there is a difference in debt. There's good debt and bad debt. And if you haven't read the book, Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it gives you some great principles around that. So I'm not saying debt is bad. But I'm saying if you get into debt and you don't know how to manage it and it's unconscious, you can find yourself in a place that'll be very difficult to get out of. And for many people, that never changes the whole life. The mortgage is 25 to 30 years. They might do a renovation or upgrade the house 2 to 3 times for that period. So the mortgage pushes out and gets renewed and renewed. And all of a sudden, their mortgage isn't finishing and getting paid. So they're in their 50s. And now that basically they've worked in a job all their life just to service this debt and just have some money on the side. And there hasn't been a lot of that either. It's just been more service and duty and got to look after the family, provide and protect. So, that's the debt trap. And there is options in regard to minimizing that. There is options in regard to managing it. And there is in regards to the really good strategies to dissolve it. So we're having this is one of the things, I've got a blog I put up on our website that's got a little bit more detail, kind of talks about many of the things I've talked about today. But I've put together a program called the Redesign Your Life program. And we're going to be running a live event in coming months in a few different locations. And what it's doing is sitting down with you and going, righto, you had a goal or a dream when you started out and when you were young. And then you got to a place when you probably got married and then had another dream. And somehow you've got to this point, no matter what your age are, and you're in a position where you're looking at life and going, this isn't where I expected to be. I'm maybe not I haven't got a relationship, or the relationship I'm not happy in. I'm in a job, but it's not the job I'm happy in. I thought I'd follow a vocation. I have to do something I'm more passionate about. And all these things haven't quite come together in the way you expected. And you're sitting there and probably feeling very incongruent, a little bit disgruntled, maybe not that happy. And, and those are the things that you go, fuck, there's got to be more. Sorry, there's got to be more. And, this is where you really sit down and go, well, I really want change and I don't want this to continue. And, I've got to do something about it. So if you're thinking that way, keep an eye out for us. I'll be on Facebook. I'll probably be on Instagram. I'm coming out and coming into the limelight, and you'll see my face around a bit more. I've been coaching for 20 years, but the reality is I spent most of my time just with one-on-one with people and kept that a limelight. But, here I am. It's the way of the world, and, I'd love to connect with you. And we've got a great team of other coaches with us that are really wanting to help people move through this phase and create opportunities in their life where they have choices and, maybe only have to work and work for half their life and then start doing the things they want to do or work in a business they love and set up the assets to bring them income and a lot of different choices that they have. Anyway, that's just a bit of an overview. It's David from the Xylem Zone. Hope you've really enjoyed that bit of an insight to the debt trap, and hopefully you're not stuck in it. And if you are, come and see us. If you want to find out how to avoid it, yep, we're here. And if you're not, well done. And then you've got plenty of other options that are available to you going forward to set up the next level. Have a great day. See you soon.